Due to very popular, you could say never-ending requests, I am back. We're doing Flash again. So the gimmick this time is it's just going to be a marathon. We're just going to sit and watch the season over the next few days, and you at home, we're also at home. So the gimmick this time is we're going to just sit and watch the season over the next few days, and in between each episode, we're going to report in. Going into season 6, I'm pretty skeptical, obviously, but mainly I'm just thinking that this will be somewhere along the lines of where I was going back into Arrow season 6, where it's been a couple years since I watched the show regularly. I don't really remember what happened last time. I know there was a
definitely remember what
happened
last time.
There was a time travel daughter, and she disintegrated. And then there was the villain who wanted to kill all the metahumans. Cisco became a normal human. I think he cured his meta-humanity. Ralph was there. I don't know what's going to happen this season. Hopefully it will just be like the later seasons of Arrow, decent, watchable TV. And I'm not doing this alone because I refuse to watch this goddamn show alone ever again.
So I watched the first 2 seasons like 5 years ago, I think.
And that's it?
And that's it. At one time in my life, I enjoyed this show. So I'm hoping I enjoy this viewing. Otherwise, you're going to hear about it. Episode 1. So, do I look at you or the camera? I've never asked this.
Honestly, a pretty solid start to the season. A very fun, irreverent, normal episode of The Flash. The dialogue all sounds the same. It's all just techno-babble nonsense trying to explain how someone built a black hole and then got their consciousness trapped in a black hole, and then they have to go in and get the consciousness. And
the black hole is the other half of Chester's mind. It's his consciousness.
I thoroughly enjoyed when Barry pulled the man's consciousness out of the black hole and he just throws it into the chamber with the dude. It's like, well, I hope this works.
Hey, you're the Flash. With the speeding around and the lightning and all that.
The thing about these shows is you can only ever really consider them in the context of, well, it's pretty good for a superhero show on the CW. And if they exceed those expectations, like the worst of what I've seen from these shows, then I'm going to be happy. I can't make any negative calls or predictions for the whole season based on this because it was all right. I like the setup. I mean, it's the start to a season. I know how these seasons are generally structured.
She didn't have to die, Kate. No one with HLH does. Because you could help me stop it.
I like the setup for the villain. I like the setup for the Godspeed thing. That's mildly interesting. I'll see where that goes.
Grant Gustin sort of fell short for me in this opening episode, but I think that's just because him and Iris, their whole thing apparently is their daughter like disintegrated or something at the end of the last season.
Yeah.
So I have no emotional connection to that. So I'm just like, get over it.
There is no support group for what we're experiencing.
The emotional stakes we set up for the season, or at least for the next few episodes here, are solid and interesting, but I do hope there's a little more to it than just, we are sad and we might still have kids one day. It does feel somewhat freeing to not really have a dog in this fight anymore emotionally. I don't really care what happens this season. I don't care if it's bad, because if it's bad, that means nothing to me. I have watched several bad seasons of these shows, and my life has not changed at all. It does get better.
Not the show, just life.
Life. What I'm happy about more than anything is that I will never have to watch Flash Season 6 ever again when it's done.
Cisco, good. Senior Joe, good. Iris, bad. Overall, strong start.
This was a pretty standard episode of The Flash. You've got overarching plot going on with Barry, you've got B plot about a random metahuman, and you've got just comedy relief C plot. It works.
There was no mention of Nora, so
I guess they're over it.
So I guess they're over it. Barry's moved on to bigger and better things, such as witnessing billions die. But no, Joe was around to sort of guide him through it with his experience in a shootout.
Out of nowhere, pop! Bullet flies by my head.
So
The same thing, really.
that whole plot line with the microwave woman who showed up, that was like the big action sequence of this episode, which like I was not a big fan of. Barry showed up, although he was injured, and like he was too slow to dodge her UV rays because those are too fast. I didn't think anything was too fast for the Flash. We're on what? We're on the 6th season now? Or he's been through enough battles that he should know that like he can like sidestep things. He just sort of chose to run straight at it. Maybe he's been through so many wormholes that he just thinks he's impervious now, which I guess he is. His scratch on his leg was like glowing. And then I don't know who it was, but they were like, antimatter, that's new. And I'm like, that's new for me too.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's see where this goes. And they just don't address it again. And he seems to be perfectly fine, although he has searing pain.
Did it work?
I was surprised that like the Killer Frost subplot was my favorite part of this episode.
I didn't really pick this up in the last episode, but I guess the plot of this season for Caitlin is that Killer Frost wants to be like a real person, so I'm assuming it's just going to be running comic relief going on in the background. Sometimes the show just needs to take some time away and be dumb.
I mean, come on. This isn't art. It's garbage.
Was the art show in this episode
Yes.
too? Oh my gosh.
Yes, it's already happening to Grant. If you don't pay enough attention, every episode bleeds together and you cannot tell where one ends and when and where your sentence begins. It's hard to make any predictions at this point about where things are going. I mean, we don't even have a Harrison Wells yet, although anyone could be Harrison Wells. We were joking while watching this episode that the best way to view this show is through the lens of any character in any scene could secretly be the Reverse Flash. So you just have to kind of...
And the reveal could come at any moment.
It keeps you on your toes. You literally never know when it could happen.
Jay's helmet will help channel the tachyons into your frontal cortex and ignite your synaptic pathways.
You can get the Flash to do literally anything if you just throw a few terms that sound mildly scientific at him. I feel like you can get him to agree to do literally anything. And like if he has an issue with it, you just like fire a few more things at him. I mean, I haven't been there, but I feel like he's been through so much at this point that he feels like he can just like science through like anything. Barry just needs 2 things to succeed in life, and Iris is not one of them. It is Senior Joe and it is science.
This was pretty standard. This is what I expect from the show, and if the show can maintain this level of quality or exceed it, I'm on board for season 6 so far. This one was all right. Nothing too notable about it, really, in terms of story or characters. It was all just fine. It's got the usual Flash thing where Barry doesn't want to tell his team something, and then he has to because...
I have to die in Crisis.
The big moment of the episode was Barry revealing to the team that he's going to die, which I know he doesn't, so a lot of this part of the season, anything pre-Crisis, I'm assuming is going to be a lot of me just going... yeah, but no. The way they're building it up is fine. It's not uninteresting. It's not boring. It's just, I know where this is leading, and the amount of importance they're placing on it, I know ultimately doesn't really track with what happens.
Wells is back. Hell yeah. I like his bit. He's like Indiana Jones. I didn't know that there was a Council of Wells. Can you...
Yes, there is a
Can you educate me on the Council of Wells very quickly?
So the Council of Wells, there's this bit in the first season of Rick and Morty where there was a Council of Ricks, and they just did that. You know, much like every idea the Flash has tackled, it's the lamer version of something else. My favorite aspect so far is how they're handling the villain. I like that he's not just crazy and evil from the get-go.
Also, he's just trying to cure cancer, so that's, like, pretty dope. I mean, it's kind of clear, at least right now, where it's going. Like, he wants to cure cancer, but he wants to do it by killing people, you know.
That's not good.
Like, curing cancer is just, like, a sub-goal. It's like a B-plot. His main driving force that he's kept secret all this time is that he just wants to replace everyone's blood with pudding. He wants to live in a sweeter central city.
If Marv is alive, what about your other boyfriends? How many of them are alive?
I'm really hating everything that's going on with Ralph. Apparently his mom is just sleeping with men and then telling Ralph that they're dead. Honestly, I couldn't care less. It's so bad. Like, those scenes play out like sketch comedy scenes.
You always moved on so quickly.
I was being strong for you.
I don't mind Microwave Hands being a new member of the cast.
Yeah, I was about to bring up her too. What do you think of her and her journalism?
If her character is going to be, I used to have an edgy past and now I'm a good person and I have superpowers, I assume she'll either die later or show up somewhere down the line to like shoot beams at someone.
Frost has never had a birthday party, so I offered to throw her one.
The party scene was pretty good. I want a gif of Grant Gustin doing his best like dance thing, because as a fellow Grant, that is also like my best move. And it's all I have is just rocking back and forth with enthusiasm.
There's a loose theme running through the episode of anger and rage, and that being what makes you fight, or the pain behind your rage being what's actually important. I don't know. They didn't even seem to have a clear grasp on what they were trying to say about it.
You let your anger get the better of you. I thought you had a handle on that.
Solid episode overall.
Looking
Decent.
forward to episode 4.
I'm not bored yet. More and more, I'm just seeing that like this is a show for children and teenagers. Like, this is not a smart show at all. I feel like they should introduce more characters in The Flash who just openly do coke.
So, episode 4. This one, not a ton happened. Like, the villain got eviler.
His blood cells were flooded with epinephrine. It's the bonding agent.
I really like how his whole shtick is that people need to be scared. So if there's epinephrine in their blood, which is the bonding agent, so that their blood can connect to his blood. And like, this guy's a doctor. I'm no doctor personally, but like, I'm pretty sure there is synthetic epinephrine that he could just use, and then he turns them into zombies. For what reason? I don't know. It's all very convoluted, and I expected more from The Flash. It's usually very succinct and well thought out.
You deserve better than this. No, I don't.
They're putting so much focus and energy and time into talking about how terrible Crisis is going to be and how traumatizing it's going to be to lose Barry and how everyone's reacting to this. And I understand the enormity of Crisis as an event in this universe, but Barry has almost died so many times. Barry's death has always been off in the future, whether it was a villain who wanted to kill him or some sort of weird Speed Force thing. And Barry has actually died, I think, multiple times over the course of the show already and come back. The season has been about death in a lot of ways because of the Crisis connection, I'm guessing. This episode's theme is more specifically about sacrificing yourself for a specific idea, you know, making your death meaningful. And it's ironic because the episode had very little meaning or memorability. Whether I had seen Crisis or not, this would still be kind of dull and repetitive, I think, because it's just over and over again, characters crying and talking about how sad it is that Barry's gonna die.
We all know Barry's not going anywhere, so like, it kind of falls flat, even though Senior Joe gave it his all. And then Scene really shown his acting chops.
It's okay, man. It's all right.
I don't know what they're doing with Ralph this season. It very much feels like they just need to give him something to do episode by episode. But the things they've thought up have just been so half-baked.
I still have no idea what's going on with the Ralph. Some Dear Bond person they keep referencing. He has a case. I don't know.
Caitlin did what she always does now, which is she showed up and she shot some ice and then she left.
Well, she punched someone with ice knuckles.
Ice Knuckles was all right. I kind of liked Ice Knuckles. I'll give him Ice Knuckles. Ice Knuckles was fun.
So he's turning people into human blood banks. And as soon as he gets hungry again, he's gonna make a withdrawal.
Some A+ flashback work in this episode too. I didn't realize we were still using handkerchiefs with blood on them as cinematic shorthand for this person is going to die. I thought that might have died out in the 1920s, but I guess we're still doing it. To a degree, I understand that the writers of this show think their audience is stupid because generally they're right. But do we need to be spoon-fed to this degree?
I mean, I am pretty dumb.
I know, but I'm not. Doesn't that mean anything anymore? Doesn't me being so smart and handsome mean anything to these people? Actually, no, my favorite moment of the episode was when Ramsey fully embraces becoming the villain, and he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to kill people. And we rack focus to a framed Hippocratic oath he keeps in his office. Oh my god,
I forgot about that.
So good. Oh my god. That is how we know this character is turned, because the only reason you shouldn't murder someone is because you're a doctor.
I really have no idea what's going to happen with the blood dude. He's just gonna turn more people into pudding, I guess. Delicious pudding. So, episode 5. This one was pretty good. This might be my favorite episode, actually, so far.
I found this one to be pretty unremarkable overall. I think it was mainly because of the way the story was told. They killed off Gypsy, who I shouldn't even say the name because it's not a good word to say anymore, who is a character we haven't seen for 2 or 3 seasons, I think. I can't remember when they broke up or when she left. They couldn't get the actress back. You could tell by how they filmed the death scene. The problem, like most problems with the show, is that the resolution for the actual mystery or story just ends up being a bunch of science nonsense, and Sisko's talking about how his white noise machine was turned into a subconscious neurotransmitter thing. They just say words.
I specialize in hacking multiversal databases to create new identities.
I like Sisko a lot, so he sort of had the spotlight this episode. Yeah, the evil Sisko I found really funny.
I love when an actor has to act crazy and psycho and twisted, and this was real Joker.
She was a formidable fighter, but not even the smartest guy in the room could beat her in hand-to-hand combat.
There was no Iris or Barry in this episode, and although I like Barry, no Iris, always welcome.
The episode's theme is about faith, and the main reason that you learn that theme is by each character saying the word faith, having faith, telling stories about faith.
You can have faith in anything, but have faith in people.
Just reasserting the idea of faith so many times that you would have to be actively not watching the show to miss it. To be fair, the episode's problem was not solved with Barry simply running fast. So they can do other things.
Oh, dude, I didn't even talk about Donnie Trejo. Is his name Don?
Danny Trejo is his name.
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo.
Okay. Anyways, Machete showed up, and that was pretty cool. He sliced a hole in, like, reality and then showed up. That was pretty cool. Episode 6. We ended today on a pretty good note with this one. There were 3 main plot lines going on. There was the James Bond thing. There was Wells and microwave hands. And there was Chester asking a girl out. This was the episode I found that had the most jokes that, like, actually made me laugh and not, like, laugh at them. I was actually laughing with the jokes. The Mortal Kombat bit was, like, actually genuinely pretty funny.
I love Mortal Kombat.
Like, when they allow Grant Gustin or the Flash to have a good time, and he's just, like, joking around, I feel like that's when the show is at its best.
500 million.
500,000,001 dollar. Price is right rules.
I really like Drunk Barry. That was a great bit, and I want to see more Drunk Barry in this show. Grant Gustin has a very sort of upbeat energy to him, and the show, because it's a CW show and he's the protagonist and he's usually dealing with his own death or someone's death or the end of the world or all reality, he always has to be so, like, dour and serious. But when you give him these moments to really shine comedically, it's the most memorable aspects of his character, I think. On the surface, The Flash seems like the show that is more fun, at least comparing it to Arrow when they were both on. But it's always been kind of the same level of seriousness. There's just more jokes. This was another classic Flash filler episode, but I prefer comedic filler over dramatic filler. This episode thematically was about being yourself. And like every episode, it's delivered very bluntly, with Microwave Hands in particular deciding that the difference between her and her cousin, who also has microwave hands, she doesn't want to use her powers because she doesn't want to end up like her cousin. I guess she never considered that you have free will and you can make your own decisions.
What's to stop me from becoming like her?
Because, Allegra, in this life we choose.
I love how Wells had to explain that to her.
Yeah, it's always nice. I mean, I don't know how old that character's supposed to be, but I always do love when these fully grown adult characters have to have like very simple concepts about just existing and staying alive and functioning as a person, just very clearly explained to them directly face to face.
You remind me of someone.
Another doppelganger?
Something like that.
I'm going to assume that there's some sort of like daughter who died. That would be my guess. It's a CW show. If someone gets teary-eyed about a younger person they know and like, oh, you remind me of someone, it's always a dead relative.
Great press conference.
There was a distinct lack of pudding in this episode.
Yeah, 0% put, I would say. There's been a consistent amount of pudding per episode, and the PPE this episode was just... the ratio is way off.
Episode 7, pretty bad. Well, I kind of understood what was going on, but I didn't understand why it was going on. A lot of stuff happened, but ultimately it was just Barry is bad now. He got puddinged. And I don't know if that was Ramsey's plan all along.
I'm really gonna miss this pudding bit when he's not the villain anymore.
It's pretty good. The pudding bit came to a head in this episode when Barry had a nightmare about all his friends and family at a dinner, and then Ramsey replaced their food with a pudding, and then they all looked at him and they were eating the pudding so fast because it was so delicious that it was just dripping down from their mouths as they all turned to him and smiled.
It was very, very scary.
Yeah, the visuals of the pudding, I will say, are like kind of strange.
This is your mind, your visions, your doubt.
This is a classic dream episode where Barry's sad about something and he has a bunch of visions that help him get through it. It's hard for me 6 seasons into this show to still feel like Barry is worried about dying. Every year, Barry kind of goes through the same conflict of like, is this guy going to be a villain I can defeat? Oh no, I can't. How do I defeat him? Oh, we're backed into a corner. Oh, wait, no, we're good. It all feels kind of fillery in that the show always does.
After all, it is the end of the world, isn't it?
It's different than Arrow Season 8 was, because Arrow Season 8 was built entirely around Crisis, but there is going to be more show after this for The Flash, so it's not quite the same thing. They're trying to... It's hard to tell what they're trying to do, honestly. I'm not.
Are they trying?
Yeah, I can't. I would never go so far as to claim the writers of The Flash are trying.
They unveiled his new costume, his pudding costume, if you will. Well, I don't know. Barry looks cool. I liked the gray like lightning streaks too.
Yeah,
he looks kind of neat.
Presumably, the next episode will be about like Barry breaking through the mental conditioning of the pudding and being like, I actually am the Flash and I'm ready to fight in Crisis. And then in Crisis, he gets like trapped in a room. Oh, maybe Crisis wasn't as good as I thought it was when I just had the Arrow context. With the added Flash context, it does make Crisis funnier in a way because it's really anticlimactic overall with the buildup it's getting.
You're the Speed Force.
Yes.
Could you explain the Speed Force for a layman? Because there was a lot of Speed Force stuff going on that is very confusing in this episode.
The portrayal of the Speed Force has changed a lot as the show has gone on. At first, it was more of a concept, I think, but it's always been personified as Barry's mother because that's like the form it takes to talk to him. I'm not really clear on how it thinks or feels things or why. Maybe this season is going to deal with the Speed Force more later on and Barry's disillusionment with it.
This is you manipulating me, so I'll do what you want.
That's not true. I care about you.
You know, Barry's always been very gung-ho about his superpowers and being a hero. So to have him actually outright question it and see it as a negative was interesting.
Barry was not happy in this episode, but when he was like freaking out, it was like actually not awful. But then it was for nothing. So it was. So it was. So this was episode 8.
Pretty standard, like, mid-season finale stuff. It felt like a condensed version of what the usual season finales feel like, so I do like splitting the season into 2 with 2 villains. That was a good call.
Barry's plan is to let the light in. It isn't for Ramsey to spread his infection to the city. It's for you to spread the antidote.
It's the show's just techno-babble nonsense they use to save the world, where if you put the blood in the particle accelerator, it'll make everyone putting demons. But if we put UV light in there, it'll change it or reverse it. It's unclear. They don't really bother to explain. They just kind of throw science words at you and pray you don't think too hard, which has been the show's MO since literally the pilot, but still.
His final form did not look as delicious as I thought it was going to.
Oh my god.
It was kind of gross, actually. I thought it was funny that Barry used Ramsey's own mom trick against him, and it worked.
Mom? How is this even possible?
Moments before it worked, Ramsey said, "This isn't real." And then it still worked. It was more of a distraction, but also I think he didn't want to win. So I'm going to miss the Pudding Man. I feel like I'm going to miss the bit more than I'm going to miss the Pudding Man. I did actually like the character in the beginning. He had a noble origin and like a relatable motivation of wanting to cure cancer.
Understandable.
It was also funny when Cisco was like, yeah, I'm gonna UV blast him and it's gonna get all the bad blood out of his system, but don't worry, he's still gonna have cancer.
He's gonna have so much cancer.
If I get close enough to blast him, he should revert back to his human form. He'd still have HLH, but at least he wouldn't be a gooey zombie overlord anymore.
Cecile.
Camilla and
Cecile.
Camilla and Cecile. See, these characters aren't important.
No.
I did respect them doing some actual camera work in their little bit where they're running away from the pudding zombies, but like nothing was going on with them. They just needed something to do.
I'm more curious than anything to see how the show feels post-Crisis, because it will be the first time I really see any of this universe post-Crisis, because all Arrow had after Crisis was 2 episodes, one of which was like a spin-off. I'm curious to see what the next villain will be. I hope the next villain isn't just a big monster again. Maybe a woman for once.
So this leads into the Crisis. Ross went over the plot of Crisis to me. He said a lot of things and I was kind of lost while I was
barely
explaining
understood
them.
as I was watching.
Yeah. The big thing for me was finding out that Lucifer is in this universe. I've watched like 1 episode of Lucifer with my mom. She's a fan of that show. And I had no idea that he was just living on World 666. Like, I'm never gonna watch the Crisis Worlds colliding. I'm never gonna watch Crisis Worlds Colliding.
I don't even remember Crisis, because Crisis is not really meant to be remembered. It's very much like a big thing that's built up to and absorbed in that moment. Crisis is basically the Avengers Endgame of these shows. Yeah, Oliver dying and the universes are all one universe now. That's basically all you need to know going in. It would be immensely funny if they try to pull the whole Barry doesn't know if he can win again thing after the literal death of the universe. Like, after getting through Crisis, I don't think Barry can ever lose confidence again. I hope the show is once again about a man who can run fast, solving crimes. Is that so much to ask for? This episode was alright. I didn't love it. It's sort of an epilogue to Crisis for the Flash. The only thing I really like about these shows and comic book stuff in general is that there are certain stories and certain sci-fi territories that only these shows go into, and I find those concepts very interesting. It's just that the execution of them is often pretty subpar. Like the idea of the multiverse and the different versions of characters we've seen, that stuff is fun. It's just the show is kind of bad. So now the idea that there is only this one universe and the people contained inside of it, it makes the show feel a little more condensed, a little more grounded again.
Our entire timeline has been rewritten so that they've always lived here, and I don't remember owning this shirt.
This one started out pretty strong with Cisco, cracking some jokes, making the transition into post-Crisis, like, easier for people who didn't watch it like me.
This is the one I made him.
This was perhaps the most predictable episode of the entire season. As soon as they introduced Barry's plot with Oliver's mask, I knew immediately it's going to be some sentimental bullshit, and I was right.
Life's a marathon, not a sprint, Barry. Slow down and enjoy it.
I'm not a fan of the secret black hole society thing. The ending with Iris getting sucked into the mirror, I'm kind of interested to see where that goes, I guess. I don't know what I'm hoping for, but I'm kind of expecting there to be like a reverse Iris, like a mirror reflected Iris who's like bad
Like
somehow.
a reverse Flash?
Like a reverse Flash.
There's nothing stronger than a reporter's drive.
A reporter's drive is the strongest thing. The strongest thing in the universe is a reporter's drive. Post-Crisis. It took the death of billions of Earths to figure out what the strongest thing in the universe is. Turns out it's a reporter's drive.
They've been trying to build up new dynamics, like the Central City Citizen newspaper team with like Camilla and Microwave Hands and Iris. I just don't really care what's ever going on in that office. Ralph has continued to not be relevant at all. Maybe he'll be back. Who knows?
He hasn't even been on screen since he got beaten by the pudding
Yeah,
line.
I did like the dynamic with this Wells, how this has kind of been a Wells that none of them want around.
No, you don't care about the team. You only work with us when you want something from us.
I just like seeing Tom Cavanaugh there. I just like him as an actor. I know he's leaving after next season, which sucks, but I'll enjoy Tom Cavanaugh on the show while I can. Crisis is over. We're past that. So now we're going to see the Flash be the Flash again. And from what I remember, that can never go wrong.
Episode 11. This one was really bad. This was the worst episode by far.
I don't think it's unfair to call this perhaps the worst episode of the entire show.
It was Valentine's Day episode. I guess they were dealing with like relationships, but it was all bad. There was no redeeming qualities of this episode. It was all trash. The Fister lady was really annoying to look at.
Oh, here we go again with the possessive man routine. The vinyl records were mine, Keith.
That's literally what she looks like. The gold chained guy made for like a bad action sequence, so even the action was bad. It was really silly that they could read each other's minds, and that's where that went, and that's what they needed to communicate to each other. Oh.
This was just a misfire on every level.
Darlings, long time no see. Did I interrupt date night?
All of it is just really unfunny bits. There's not much to talk about because every scene is just a bunch of unfunny jokes or characters arguing about nothing. This episode is kind of emblematic of everything I don't like about the show. The villains are all just jokes. The relationship drama is empty and pointless. They're trying to give the new characters something to do, so it's just, I'm sad about my ex or something. Maybe they'll just hook her up with Franklin later. Franklin? Chester's his name. Why did I call him Franklin? It's not his name.
Franklin the turtle shows up.
You know, you joke, but I was legitimately picturing a turtle in my head when I said it. I wasn't even picturing the actor. Yeah, Nash Wells just kind of around now again. Can he do something? Perhaps. Ralph remains at large. He could be anywhere. We were given a hint that there may be another Wells still out there, the best Wells, the OG Season 2 Wells. So hopefully he'll come back in some capacity.
When did you learn to... I mean, these are really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was kind of right. There is another Iris. This Iris honestly seems like an upgrade. She can make pancakes. Oh god, the bar thing was so bad.
That was the worst thing.
That was the worst thing.
Yeah.
Like, you can't make me think Iris is cool, like, no matter what you do.
The reveal at the end of the episode is that it's not actually Iris, which I called the first time you see Iris in this episode. The show was telegraphing at every turn that it wasn't actually Iris. This was a Ralph-centric episode, which I guess he'd earned by disappearing for half the season. But we finally meet Sue Dearborn.
Fine. I fell in love with a murderer. Happy?
This is a classic trope of the Arrowverse, which is you'll meet a character and they'll tell the first character they meet a story, and you as the audience should immediately know, oh, they have an ulterior motive and they're tricking them, because never once has that not happened.
She was... okay. She comes off a little strong in her, like, I'm not like the other girls bit, but she grew on me a little bit. That whole plot fell apart when, like... Never mind. I don't want to go on about this. It's so convoluted and uninteresting anyways.
Yeah.
like, she fooled him. Everyone saw it coming. Like, is that a twist?
For what? Just to sell the story of sympathetic socialite running for her life?
You bought it.
Speaking of Arrowverse cliches, we're also once again dealing with a secret terrorist organization. I don't really care about the black hole as like a villainous concept. I'm more interested in what's happening with the mirror dimension. It seems like it's only leading into a direction where they will escape, so I presume there's some sort of twist coming where Ava is not actually telling the truth and there's something larger going on. Like, I would put money on Ava actually set the whole thing up and she's been creating these mirror clones and she's the one who dragged Iris in the first place. I would not be shocked if this whole I've been trapped in here for years thing was all an act, because all we see in the flashback is her get sucked into the mirror, and then everything else is just her story. A great way to tell what's actually objectively true in the story of The Flash is, what do they flash back to? If you don't see a flashback, as far as I'm concerned, it didn't happen. I feel like the black hole is also maybe a bit of a red herring, and the lady in the mirror will end up being the actual villain.
We're getting out of here.
I've tried. For 6 years, I've been in my own personal hell.
So the mirror lady was in there for like a long ass time, right?
Yeah.
She tried 1,322 different ways to get out and failed every time. And then Iris shows up and is just like, well, have you tried this? And she's like, no.
It's kind of funny, though, that as soon as they ended the multiverse, the first thing they thought up was, what if there was another dimension? They got 3 ideas. They got 3 ideas and they're doing them over and over again.
Sticking to their guns.
Yep. I don't know. Who knows? You know what? Who cares?
Episode 13, Speedster Grodd stole the show.
They usually do 1 Grodd episode per season because when they didn't want to have to render all that Grodd footage, they just had Danielle Panabaker and Tom Cavanaugh there. I think my favorite bit to watch is that Danielle Panabaker was pregnant when they were filming this season, and just seeing the ways they try to hide that has been very fun. A lot of above-the-stomach medium shots.
A lot of not hiding it very well.
This is just one of my favorite network TV bits when they have to hide an actor's pregnancy. I just think it's really funny every time. They've started dressing Caitlyn in these very big, flowy cardigans and button-up shirts, and it's like, look, she looks pregnant. There's no way around it. Like,
we haven't had an action moment as impactful as Speedster Grodd, like doing a full lariat on this, on what's the other girl's name? Salivar? Salivar. Since the first episode where Barry drew Chester's conscience out of them.
His conscience.
His conscience. Speaking of Chester, he was also in this episode, so he's the best new character. The only thing I don't like is when he like echoes his own words.
This is so awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
I think that's going to be a major part of his character development, is learning to stop doing that. He messed up Barry's thing, but it was all for the best because it gave us Speedster Grodd. So honestly, in my book, that wasn't even a big mistake. That was a win.
That's it. Get the hell up and run, Grodd. Run!
You know, it makes sense that Grodd is unable to use his superpowers until someone tells him to run fast, because Barry also can't do that. So the internal consistency of the show is remaining just top notch.
Barry even said, like, you have my powers and my knowledge of how to use them. So,
so he does need to be told exactly what to do, which is run.
Why does Flash believe Grodd now?
This was a solid Flash filler episode in that nothing too stupid happened. Well, the most predictable twist of all happened. It turns out Mirror Lady is evil and has an ulterior motive. I'm more interested in the mystery with the Wells, but I feel like they're really dragging out the whole Wells and Allegra's doppelganger thing. I don't really care about that. They should just wrap that shit up. That narrative idea of not being able to deal with a doppelganger kind of lost its steam after season 2, like the first time it happened to everyone. Like, once you understand the concept of a multiverse, like Nash Wells would, presumably, being that he's a multiverse adventurer.
He is
the Reverse Flash is coming back, apparently.
Maybe.
If we're to believe the Sherlock Wells.
There's a new intro now. It's very bad. It's very graphic design is my passion. The new logo whips. That's cool.
It's just like 30 PNGs.
I also hope they change the suit. I'm not a huge fan of the new Flash suit. The season 4 suit is still the best suit. I just hope Chester gets more screen time and they kill off like Microwave Hands and Camilla and some of these boring characters who are just girlfriends or plot devices. All they ever use Allegra for is like, we need you to zap something. That's all she's there for. The only joke I have to think of is Brass Monkey, but saying Fast Monkey. And I don't want to sing. Next episode.
So episode 14, it started off with some Russians in a helicopter, and the helicopter got rusty. And then the Kid Flash showed up again. So this is a new character for me. I know nothing about the Kid Flash.
The lotus is one of the 8 auspicious symbols, meaning purity and renunciation.
It was okay to see Wally again. I have no positive or negative feelings. He's a hippie now. I guess that's his character. Fine. Nothing about this one really grabbed me at all. It was just kind of stuff happening. It feels weird to say that the biggest thing that happened in the episode was the Speed Force died, because I know ultimately that's just going to be more of a roadblock for these characters than an actual problem. It's a show about guys who run fast because of this thing. It's not going to be gone for too long. The only real credible threat this show has ever been able to really level against Barry is you will lose your speed when something evil is going down. It's happened before and he's won every time. You know, it's not interesting anymore.
The Speed Force stuff continues to be like really weird. It loves Barry. Confirmed canonically.
I need your help to build an artificial Speed Force.
You have to respect the casual nature with which Barry says, we're going to build our own Speed Force. As if that's just a thing that's easy to do. Like, we'll slap it together over a weekend. What's the big deal?
I know a guy.
That's right. Now, where were we?
So Thawne has taken over Nash's body or killed Nash somehow. We don't know. The scene like cut off.
I will allow myself one nitpicky thing. So Thawne is possessing the body of Nash. But here's what really gets my goat. Thawne and Harrison Wells are two different people. They have always been two different people. And maybe they'll explain it, maybe because Eobard Thawne did that weird DNA machine thing in season 1 when he became Harrison Wells. Maybe that makes him a Harrison Wells, like, by by association. Like, he's an associate's degree in being Harrison Wells.
There was also some drama with Cisco and Nash, and it was really confusing because I don't know what happened. Like, Nash just like wanted something from Cisco, and he was like, I'm too busy.
Help me track something that really matters.
I'm trying to find a criminal I've been after for weeks. That matters.
You.
It was all about like how Cisco needed to like make things right, and apparently that was with Nash, but it was so weak that like I didn't even like realize that's what he was talking about in the moment, because it was such a little thing that if they acted like real people, like it would just be fine. I was gonna say we didn't get much development with the mirror stuff, but we got a very large development with the mirror stuff.
I would say the best development in all of history.
Oh my god. I don't really understand what's going on. I mean, I don't think I'm supposed to. It's still a mystery at this point, I think.
Iris? Yeah, I'm not Iris.
There is one scene in particular I really need to talk about. So earlier on in the episode, Camilla, Cisco's girlfriend, takes a photo of Mirror Iris and Wally, and Mirror Iris says, like, delete that photo, we can't have that going around, but it's because she's a mirror, I guess. At the very end of the episode, Camilla comes back into the office, and she picks up her camera, and on the camera it says, unable to delete photo.
Filter loading.
Filter loading. And then the second screen says, anomaly detected. Apply prismatic filter. Now, I don't know when the last time these writers touched a camera was, but typically a camera does not detect anomalies in photos it takes and suggest filters to apply. So I guess that's how that camera works. Maybe Cisco upgraded it with some bullshit technology and it can detect metas or something. So she puts on the filter, and then you see Iris is a mirror Iris. And then Mirror Iris is there and shoots her with a mirror gun. This is the funniest thing they've ever put in the show. I truly think that was the funniest scene perhaps ever committed to TV. I knew the moment where they started figuring out, like, oh, it's not actually Iris. I knew that revelation would be really stupid, but I thought it would be something that Barry would notice about her personality. How has he not picked up on it yet? That she's acting like mostly a completely different person? Are we ever going to find out what happened with all those Godspeeds? Remember in the first episode? Yeah. That's never come back. They haven't addressed it once.
Not a single time.
Yeah.
Episode 15. Woo. The Wells stuff was okay. It was missing like an actual fight with the Reverse Flash. Barry and him were just sort of like arguing.
No, you're not gonna win this time. I think I am.
The show really needs to stop doing like mindscape things, because it's always so boring and dumb. They're in like a cave, and because they're between Speed Forces right now, Barry can't even run, so it's just like the most boring parts of the show. Is it so hard to write a show where the Flash punches different supervillains every week? That's all the show needs to be.
Wizard Wells, annoying. French Wells, New York City Wells, actually he's all right.
I'm kind of curious to see what they do with all the Welleses in Nash's head. The Nash subplot just resolved with a very funny scene where the characters were all breaking down and crying and hugging each other, but they had these big stupid light things on their head because it's the mental thing they used in season 4 because they had to go into his head. It's dumb.
The satellite scans say there are no traces of Thawne's negative tachyons to be found in any organic matter on the planet.
The only real gripe I have is that at the end, Cisco says that they scanned everything on the planet, apparently, to look for sources of Reverse Flash's energy. And Cisco says specifically that there is no evidence of it anywhere on any organic material on the planet. So I don't know what kind of scanners he's using, but that's a lot of material.
She should have brought along a rope.
That's true.
Like, honestly, that's not on Nash. I mean, maybe Nash was the one who brought the rope, but she was the one who decided to freaking unhook the rope.
Either way, the rope was really short.
The rope was excessively short. I don't know, man. For a multiversal adventurer, I feel like that rope was just too short. It's just simply too short. That's why Nash should be mad at himself. Not for how he taught her.
And rule number 1. The prize is everything.
How old is Nash? He's like in his 50s. If he was living his life by those standards, like the whole go for the prize thing, why isn't he dead?
It's been working.
He made it to old age. It's been working. I feel like that's
old age.
I feel like it's decrepit, senile Nash.
Here.
In the last episode, I talked a lot about the weird camera Camilla had. So I looked it up. Apparently, Cisco gave her like this super sci-fi camera at some point. All we've been doing for the past 2 days is watching this show. That did not happen. 100% that has not happened. And if it did, when I'm editing this video, I will put a clip of it happening right here.
Pretty cool camera, right? Yeah, Cisco to pick it up from Quimby Labs in Germany, but he definitely made some modifications.
But I won't because there is no clip of it.
He definitely made some modifications.
My phone has been down. The subtitles have been on. The camera has not been mentioned.
He definitely made some modifications.
I don't know. I don't really know where the show is going or why they've put so much weight on like the Mirror Lady plot point, because I don't care about Mirror Lady at all. Very boring villain. See, it's Monkey's Paw, because I asked for a female villain, and then it's just a woman who stands around and talks to other mirror things. She's not doing anything. This season, it's not doing it for me. I'm just gonna call it now. This is not very good.
They brought back Ralph in this episode, so I guess he was the one that they pulled out of their bag, and they're like, yep, this is gonna be our like B plot for this episode. He and Sue were in this one. I honestly have already forgotten what happened with them. He went to like a party. He was with Cisco. There were waffles involved. I don't care about any of these things.
We learn the real truth about Sue, which is that she's actually a good person. Because on The Flash, you are either a good person or an evil person.
I didn't enjoy tricking you.
Barry hasn't been happy for so long. We had like one episode of Happy Barry. Well, first he thought he was gonna die, and then he didn't die, and now he can't run fast anymore. And those were the two things he had going for him, you know, being alive and running fast. Without those two things, what is he? He's supposed to be the fastest man alive. What is he? Just a man?
A dead
Just
man?
a dead man?
Federal agents will be here any minute. They'll be the only ones who know where you're going. They'll keep you safe, Joe.
When Joe is being taken away into Witsec at the end, everyone's acting like he's being taken off to the slaughterhouse. It's really bizarre. Cecile's crying and losing her mind like they don't know when they're going to stop Carver. It's the guys, you do this every year.
Mirror Iris also equates it to Barry's parents.
Yeah, I mean, that was the funniest moment. That was the moment that made me wonder if maybe it was Iris all along. Is that when Joe gets driven away to be protected in federal custody, Iris is like, now we've both lost our parents.
I want you to leave.
You can't be serious.
Barry, you always do this.
Like, I understand why Mirror Iris did that, but what's funny is that I honestly don't believe that real Iris would have done anything different, because that's just how they write her character. She's just the worst person alive. The only conflict they ever give Barry is either I can't run good, or Iris mad at me, or I'm gonna die.
First, Barry lost his speed, then he lost his wife, then he lost his Senior Joe. I still don't understand the motivations of the Mirror Lady, and we've had like 5 episodes of her already. I thought that Carver didn't know that she was in the mirror, but then he was not surprised when the mirror showed up in the middle of his living room with a giant, comically large bow on, which he didn't notice when he first walked into the room. I don't know, man. It's not good.
I feel like it's not really going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. I just have one little thing I need from you. An apology.
I hope that the season is going somewhere interesting, obviously, but the villains are just really boring.
There hasn't even really been a Team Flash because Kate's been out of the picture kind of because of pregnancy.
Well, she's been, 3/4 of her have been out of the picture,
Yeah.
as it were. Joe, Cisco, and Wells and Ralph just kind of come and go whenever.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. They had literally limitless possibilities put in front of them in terms of a rebooted Earth where they could do whatever they wanted, and they just kind of continued the boring they were already doing. The writers are trying to keep things surprising, like the Captain Singh reveal, or Chief Singh, whatever we call him now, that he's a mirror person. Okay.
What can I do to fix this? 'Cause I feel terrible.
What about how I feel?
They're not on good terms right now. So next episode, I expect them to be on very good terms by the end.
That's how the show works.
Because that's how the show works, which I am
learning the
which
hard
I am
way.
learning the hard way. So, episode 17, perhaps the funniest moment of this season happened where, we've been joking about Barry should be able to figure it out that Iris isn't the real Iris, but that was revealed in such spectacular fashion. Cecile walks into her own apartment and Barry just has the place littered with like police folders, and he has a big whiteboard with odd behavior and then like a big like wall.
There could be shape-shifting Martians on this Earth now. This fake Iris doesn't even have to be from our planet.
The music they're playing and how she's reacting is like trying to make it seem like he's crazy, but it's perfectly plausible, like in this universe, like all of the things that he's posing.
Iris left to investigate a story. I analyzed her phone's GPS and it shows that she went to McCulloch Tech.
So Barry actually figured something out. So way to go, Barry. He does get Cecile and Nash in on it to like confront her about it. I don't know why those were the only two. I guess Cisco and Ralph were like busy dealing with Kate's pregnancy. So they were busy.
Kayla, help me.
There was a little side story going on with Caitlin and Ralph and Cisco. The only real notable thing about this sequence is that it shows just how lazy they've gotten about hiding Danielle Pena-Baker's pregnancy, because they just have her lying down on a couch with a giant blanket over her the whole time. The episode opens with them trying to make their own Speed Force, which I guess they just threw together over a weekend, like I said. I thought I was being ironic, but I guess not. The development of Barry not having his speed, which has been done, I think, multiple times, definitely at least once as like a major end of season. How do they get around this kind of development?
Let's take away what makes him interesting,
Yeah.
and then see what we have left.
Yeah, turns out not much.
So the other good thing about this episode was we got a return of the Pudding Man. He was locked up. I don't really understand what happened in that scene, to be honest. The Mirror Camilla just offed herself to open his cell for 60 seconds. He walked out, like launched the chief mirror guy, and then he gave the mirror Iris some blood.
Let's just call this the long game.
I don't know. He said it was part of the long game, so he knows best. He knows better than I. Maybe it's just because I know more about him and I understand his motivations more, but I feel like he's like the real big baddie. He seems scarier than the Mirror Lady. The Mirror Lady is just crazy.
This didn't have to be like this, Flash. You don't know what it's like in there.
The only moderately interesting thing was Mirror Iris sort of turning around. I mean, as soon as I saw her have a flicker of doubt in her eye, I knew, okay, Mirror Iris is getting a redemption arc, because as this show has proven many times, there can be no version of Iris who is not absolutely morally correct at all times, which is what makes her such a compelling character. When you watch a superhero show and complain about the female characters, it's hard not to feel like an write them better. Just write them better.
Through the end of the world and back.
We end on a note of like really cheesy love music. The final frame is like split between Mary between
Mary and Joseph.
Mary and Joseph. I'm really looking forward to it being over at this point. Okay, so this was episode 18, the second to last. Immediately at the beginning of this episode, we have a scene with Joe. So Ross and I both thought we weren't getting any more Joe, so that lifted my spirits a little bit.
Federal agents will be here any minute. They'll be the only ones who know where you're going.
Supposedly, there were only 2 FBI agents who knew where Joe was, so I guess Barry interrogated and or killed one of them. Or both of them to get that information. Maybe that's why he was so shooken up when he got there and covered in blood. I prefer my version of the show so much more.
Me too.
Anyways, you know, Joe was supposed to be God, but Barry couldn't do anything without a Joe pep talk. So that gave him the strength to keep running. Maybe that's where he's getting all this extra speed juice from. Because how many episodes ago? 4 episodes? 5 episodes ago, the Speed Force died. And Barry did a lot of running in this episode, I'll have you know. But I guess he had to because Godspeed finally returned. We've been waiting on this since like the first episode, and it hasn't come up until now. So finally a payoff. Finally we got a good like Flash action scene where he was running.
It was nice to see actual scenes of Barry running around the city, like being the Flash. That was fun.
Star Labs. Still keeping mediocre engineers around, I see.
So Pied Piper was the big like plot line of this episode.
I feel like they should have delved more into the pre and post crisis worlds and the differences between them, especially in the case of Harrison Wells, because the answer they gave for why Nash is seeing all of these other Welleses is that all of the Harrison Wells converged into his brain, but I guess that didn't happen to anyone else in the universe? The real answer is, like everything on this show, it doesn't matter. This episode is the first time we've really seen any actual consequences of not understanding the changes of Crisis, and then because it's an episode of The Flash, they fix everything by the end and everyone's friends.
I just found it really funny when they were leaving, you know, they're like friends now and he's good, but he's like, and I'm gonna need you to not rob any more diamond stores. He's like, no promises. Nudge, nudge. Barry just lets him leave. It's like, no, I can't let you leave until you agree not to rob people anymore.
Stay out of diamond stores for a while. No promises.
It's kind of hard to talk about the overarching story of the season because we know it's not going to end the way it was intended to. I feel like the next one will probably end with, I forgot her name, Ava. I feel like the next episode will end with Ava winning in a sense. I just feel like that's kind of where they would be at in this season, and that's where they got cut off. I kind of wish they'd kept Mirror Iris around. I feel like it could have been kind of an interesting dynamic to have this other Iris there who knows what the villain's planning, so we could finally find out what the villain is planning. All we saw from her this episode was her in some sort of weird cocoon-like chamber. Going into the finale, I really don't care about anything that's going on because it's just platitudes and speeches and we're all a big team and we love each other and we'll work together. And I don't know how many times Barry has given this goddamn speech, but I've heard it.
Eva McCulloch has never faced us head on. And that's about to change.
So let's see how they wrap things up, as it were.
Yeah, one more episode to go. I'm excited for it to be done. Episode 19, the finale. I feel much relieved.
I honestly thought this was an okay episode as far as non-finales go. Because of COVID-19, The Flash was unable to end this season with the planned amount of episodes, so this became the finale, And honestly, I think it functioned pretty well as a finale for this season. All the plot lines converged in one place. There was solid emotional payoff. I know it wasn't paying off what was intended to be paid off as a whole, but what did get paid off, I was like, yeah, that's all right. That's solid, you know? Obviously, there are still many threads left untied, and that's just the nature of how this season went down. But I think for the story that was being told with Ava, or at least what we understand of her story, because 100% there's more to her plan than just kill Carver. You know, I feel like whenever the real finale comes about, I think it's 3 episodes into the next season, I believe that's correct. I think it's going to be really lame and anticlimactic. I don't know why I think that.
The mirror lady finally, like, achieved a goal. Once again, I'm having trouble recalling specifics from this episode just because, again, it's all over the place.
How you weaponized my technology? Extorted charitable donors?
The mirror lady seemed pretty reasonable to me. I don't know why they're fighting so hard against her. She's crazy, I guess.
Yeah.
So anything she wants must be insane. But now I know what she wanted. She just wanted to kill Carver, and she did that. So, like, good for her.
In a season that felt like a bunch of diluted ideas, it was nice to have a finale that did feel bold and different in a sense. Even if it was by accident, this is, for historical purposes, the season 6 finale of The Flash. This is what went down. This is the story. It was an alright ending to a pretty bad story. Once again, I was more focusing on things that weren't happening in the story, like when Caitlin's mom came back, I realized that actor also played Tyler's mom on The Vampire Diaries. I just like seeing actors from The Vampire Diaries show up in things. It's like, oh, they are still working. That's good. And also, I finally realized where I recognized the actor who played Carver from, and he's in Wet Hot American Summer, the TV shows.
So as long as you stay true to yourself, you will always find a way to beat the bad guys.
The show didn't really make me feel anything. All of the emotional stuff just seems like really, really fake and doesn't have much punch, because you know that if someone loves someone, it doesn't matter because they're going to hate them in the next episode because of something that was out of their control.
Yes.
And then they make up and then they love each other again, and it was all about love all along. Oh my god.
This is the show.
Who told Barry that, like, his true power wasn't speed, it was love? It was Kate.
It's because speed isn't what drives you. It's love.
It's like, no, he's fast. He's the fastest man alive. Anyways, the Flash continues to run around fast, even though the Speed Force is dead. We got no resolution to that.
Well, let's go save some people we love.
If I may reflect on the season as a whole, mirrors.
Wow.
This season overall, I would say it was most certainly a season of The Flash. It had all the ups and all the downs and, you know, relative ups. Even the ups were like, okay. There were only 2 or 3 episodes I can point to and actively say that was a bad episode, but there are only 2 or 3 I can also point to and say that was a good episode. Everything else is the usual formless mush of superhero garbage that the show just becomes in my head when I'm not actively watching it. At its best, this show is just dumb fun. There are some things that only The Flash will do, and only the Arrowverse will do, and when that stuff really works, it is genuinely fun.
My thoughts on the season overall, pretty bad. Pretty bad TV. I don't know if, like, the first half was actually better than the second half.
The show does also suffer a bit this season by both of the villains having kind of seemingly limitless powers. It's never really clear what they're capable of or what they're not capable of. They can just kind of do whatever, and that's the big thing about The Flash that bugs me. There's never a clear sense of internal consistency of how superpowers work. Like you've been pointing out for episodes, that we have no idea how much speed Barry has left or how much he can use before he's in trouble. And that's always the case, because Barry should be able to defuse any situation in literally milliseconds. But he doesn't, because he has to stand around and have tension because the episodes have to be 40 minutes long and there have to be 20 episodes per season. I feel like perhaps I've been giving this show too much of a benefit of the doubt, because I did genuinely love it at one point, and I would like to approach this show with positive emotions, because getting mad at network TV, no one wins. They're gonna keep making it. All you can really do is hope the show will get better if it gets worse. And at the beginning of every new Flash season, I kind of feel like, okay, they're changing things up. It's getting a little bit different. Maybe this is the one where they get back on track. But the track is relative.
This show goes by fast, and I don't love it. I don't know. I'm trying to find something clever to say with love and speed, but...
I love speed.
I love speed. I love speed.
This was a long, arduous journey. Thank you, Grant, for coming with me. Thank you for sitting through all of this season with me. I honestly think what was missing from these last few Flash seasons was just watching it with someone else, because it was much less miserable. Thank you, all of you, for watching at home. I hope this was fun. I hope you enjoyed watching my head stubble grow out in real time over these last few days. See, the thing is, if I want to find out what happens next, and I am kind of curious, as I always am kind of curious, because if I watch The Flash, I will have seen it, and then I don't have to think about it ever again. And season 7 is done now, and it's all on Netflix. And it does wrap up this season's story. So should we watch season 7?